President Trump says the U.S. will place a 25% tariff on imports from all countries.
Donald Trump's tariffs cast a huge shadow over the federal election. He also threatened Ottawa and the European Union from working together to do what he calls economic harm to the U.S. Large-scale tariffs, far larger than currently planned, will be placed on both of them.
In an unprecedented move that's sending shockwaves through international markets, President Donald Trump has announced April 2, 2025 as Liberation Day, marking the commencement of a series of aggressive tariffs aimed at reshaping America's trade relationships. This bold strategy targets major global players and industries, igniting fierce debates and concerns worldwide. President Trump's protectionist stance has been a hallmark of his administration, with a focus on reducing trade deficits and bolstering domestic industries. The declaration of Liberation Day signifies a culmination of escalating trade measures, including previous tariffs on steel, aluminum, and a renewed trade war with Canada and Mexico. Automobile imports. A 25% tariff on all foreign-made vehicles is set to take effect on April 3rd. The administration anticipates this will generate $100 billion annually and invigorate U.S. auto manufacturing. However, critics warn of increased consumer prices and potential retaliation from trade partners. Reciprocal tariffs. Countries imposing tariffs on U.S. goods will face equivalent countermeasures. This approach aims to pressure nations into fairer trade practices. But agricultural products. Specific tariffs targeting agricultural imports are designed to protect American farmers from foreign competition. Details remain forthcoming, but the move has already sparked concern among international agricultural exporters. Secondary tariffs on Venezuelan oil. Nations purchasing oil from Venezuela will incur additional tariffs, a measure intended to exert economic pressure on the Venezuelan government amid ongoing political turmoil. The international community has responded with alarm. Allies and trade partners, including Canada, Mexico, and the European Union, have condemned the tariffs and are contemplating retaliatory measures. Economists warn of a potential trade war that could disrupt global supply chains, increase consumer prices, and slow economic growth. In the U.S., industries reliant on imported materials and components express concern over rising costs and competitive disadvantages. The automotive sector, in particular, fears that increased production expenses will lead to higher prices for consumers and decreased sales. President Trump's tariff strategy is a high-stakes gamble aiming to recalibrate global trade in favor of the United States. Supporters argue that these measures are necessary to protect American jobs, reduce trade deficits, and compel other nations to engage in fair trade practices. They believe that short-term economic pains will yield long-term gains for domestic industries. Critics, however, caution that such aggressive tactics risk alienating allies, provoking retaliatory tariffs, and destabilizing the global economy. They highlight the potential for increased costs to consumers and businesses, supply chain disruptions, and the undermining of international trade agreements. As Liberation Day approaches, the United States stands at a crossroads in its economic and diplomatic relations. The implementation of these tariffs marks a pivotal moment that could redefine America's position in the global market. Will these bold measures lead to a renaissance in domestic manufacturing and fairer trade deals, or will they plunge the nation into costly trade wars with far-reaching consequences? We want to hear from you. Do you support President Trump's tariff strategy? How do you think these measures will impact the economy and your daily life? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth analyses on this developing story.
Canada is freezing rebate payments for Tesla.
Canada putting a hold on Tesla in its EV rebate program.
Transport Canada is freezing rebate payments for Tesla until each claim is individually investigated.
A shocker from Ottawa has just sent tremors through Canada's electric vehicle industry. Tesla buyers are suddenly frozen out of federal rebates, and the backlash is erupting. Is this a bold climate policy recalibration or a political vendetta cloaked in environmental language? As of March 25, 2025, the Canadian government has quietly halted rebate payments for all Tesla vehicles under the federal EV incentive program. This unprecedented freeze is raising serious questions about transparency, about economic priorities, and about whether the Liberals are using green policy to target Elon Musk's empire. The Federal Incentives for Zero-Emission Vehicles IZEV program has been a cornerstone of Canada's push toward a greener future. Introduced in 2019, it offers up to $5,000 to Canadians purchasing new electric vehicles. Tesla, one of the world's leading EV producers, has long been a major beneficiary of this initiative. Tens of thousands of Canadians have used these rebates to make Teslas more affordable. But in a quiet move revealed by a CBC News report, Transport Canada confirmed it is withholding rebates for Tesla purchases while it conducts a review into whether the company's pricing strategy violates program rules. The Trudeau government is accusing Tesla of playing pricing games, allegedly undercutting base models to sneak under the rebate cap, only to upsell customers on options after the fact. Is this a fair crackdown on loopholes, or is Tesla being punished for being too successful? First, let's break down the government's case. Transport Canada claims Tesla is gaming the system. Under IZEV rules, only EVs with a base MSRP below $55,000 are eligible for rebates. But Tesla's Model 3, often sold with upgrades, ends up costing far more. The accusation is that Tesla advertises a stripped-down version of the Model 3 to qualify, but that version is barely available, or not really intended for most buyers. Critics say this undermines the spirit of the rebate program, which is designed to help middle-class Canadians afford EVs, not to subsidize luxury tech brands. On paper, the Liberals are simply enforcing the rules. But is that the real story? Because here's the twist. Tesla is not the only automaker offering base models near the eligibility ceiling, and yet no other company is facing a rebate freeze. That's why supporters of Tesla are crying foul, suggesting this is more political than procedural. Could this be retaliation against Elon Musk, who has become increasingly critical of Liberal governments and cozy with right-wing causes? As of now, Transport Canada says the freeze is temporary, but they've offered no deadline, no timeline, and no formal hearing for Tesla. The company says it's cooperating, but in the meantime, Canadian consumers are stuck in the middle, uncertain whether they'll receive thousands of dollars they were promised. Second, the freeze raises questions about Canada's broader EV goals. Trudeau's government has set ambitious targets. 20% of all new vehicles sold by 2026 must be electric, scaling up to 100% by 2035. But freezing rebates for Canada's most popular EV brand sends a confusing message. Are we serious about electrification, or are we playing political favorites? Industry analysts warn this move could damage consumer confidence. If rebate eligibility can be suspended without warning, how can Canadians trust the government's EV policy at all? Already, EV sales are slowing across North America. This decision could make it worse. This isn't just a Tesla story. It's a referendum on how Canada handles innovation, regulation, and political power. Supporters of the freeze argue it's about fairness. If Tesla is dodging the rules, then the government must act. They say the Liberals are defending taxpayers and maintaining integrity in a billion-dollar subsidy program. But critics see it differently. They say the move reeks of political convenience, targeting a brand that's out of favor with the current government, while turning a blind eye to others doing the same. And then there's the deeper question. What message are we sending to companies that want to invest in Canada's green future? If regulatory uncertainty and sudden freezes become the norm, we may end up pushing innovation away, not welcoming it. Meanwhile, consumers are being left in the dark. Thousands of Tesla buyers now face uncertainty. Will they still get their rebates? If not, are they being punished for buying the wrong car at the wrong time? At a moment when Canada should be accelerating toward its climate goals, this EV rebate freeze throws sand in the gears. Is the government protecting fairness or playing favorites? Are Tesla buyers collateral damage in a political showdown? The battle over rebates is more than a policy tweak. It's a test of trust, transparency, and the future of Canada's green economy. What do you think? Is this a legitimate crackdown on rebate abuse or a strategic political strike against Elon Musk? And more importantly, who's really paying the price? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more political deep dives that expose the real power plays shaping our world.
Led by the Nasdaq, which plunged by as much as 4% at one point earlier. The sell-off is driven by concerns about the impact of President Trump's trade policy.
There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America.
And the Nasdaq down over 4%. Tesla, one of the big fallers of the day, down more than 10%. The S&P 500, the broader index, also down more than 2%.
Lead to a recession.
It takes a little time. It takes a little time.
In a shocking turn of events, global financial markets are in turmoil as President Donald Trump's aggressive trade policies ignite fears of a looming recession. Investors worldwide are scrambling for safe havens, with U.S. Treasury bonds emerging as the standout refuge amidst the escalating chaos. As of March 31, 2025, the financial world is witnessing unprecedented volatility. President Trump's announcement to extend tariffs to all countries has sent shockwaves through global markets, triggering a massive sell-off in equities and a flight to safety in sovereign bonds and gold. The seeds of this turmoil were sown with the U.S. administration's decision to impose sweeping tariffs on imports, aiming to protect domestic industries, but inadvertently sparking fears of a global trade war. The latest move to implement reciprocal levies on trading partners, set to take effect on April 2nd, has only intensified these concerns. Global stock market meltdown. Major stock indices across the globe have plummeted. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq futures tumbled, with Japan's Nikkei plunging 4.1%. European markets mirrored this downturn, reflecting the widespread investor anxiety over escalating trade tensions. Surge in U.S. Treasury demand. In stark contrast to the equity markets, U.S. Treasuries have experienced a surge in demand. Investors are flocking to these government bonds, seeking stability amidst the market chaos. This flight to safety has driven yields down, with the 10-year Treasury yield falling significantly. Commodity market reactions. Gold prices have soared to new heights, reaching a record $3,128 per troy ounce, as investors seek traditional safe haven assets. Conversely, oil prices have declined due to concerns over reduced global demand stemming from the escalating trade disputes. The current market dynamics underscore a classic risk-off scenario, where investors retreat from equities to the relative safety of fixed-income securities like U.S. Treasuries. This shift reflects deep-seated fears about the potential for a global economic slowdown induced by protectionist trade policies. The surge in Treasury demand has led to a notable drop in yields. While this is beneficial for current bondholders, it poses challenges for future investors seeking yield and signals apprehension about economic growth prospects. Furthermore, the spike in gold prices highlights the extent of market fear, as investors traditionally flock to precious metals during periods of uncertainty. The simultaneous decline in oil prices suggests expectations of reduced industrial activity and global demand, painting a grim picture for the near-term economic outlook. Conclusion and call to action. The escalating trade war, marked by President Trump's expansive tariff strategy, has thrown global markets into disarray. Investors are caught in a whirlwind of uncertainty, seeking refuge in safe haven assets like U.S. Treasuries and gold. The critical question now is, how long will this turbulence last, and what measures can be taken to stabilize the global economy? We invite you to share your thoughts and insights in the comments below. How are you navigating these volatile times? What strategies do you believe can mitigate the risks posed by the ongoing trade war? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analyses and updates on this developing situation. Stay informed, stay engaged, and let's weather this storm together.
Canada gets a new Prime Minister and he wants to mend ties with India.
Opportunities to rebuild the relationships with India is to diversify our trading relationships.
President Trump again imposed unjustified tariffs on our nation. We will fight back.
April 2nd comes, that'll be reciprocal tariff. 25%.
The president is imposing tariffs soon on almost everyone. D-Day is the 2nd of April, or as Trump calls it, Liberation Day.
With like-minded countries,
we will fight back. We will fight back with everything we have to get the best deal for Canada, just to fight.
Who could have predicted this? After months of political warfare and diplomatic breakdowns, India and Canada, once locked in a bitter standoff, are suddenly shaking hands. And the reason? One name: Donald J. Trump. As of March 26, 2025, a stunning geopolitical pivot is underway. In the face of Trump's aggressive new tariff regime, two estranged democracies are being forced to find common ground. But is this alliance built on strength or desperation? Rewind just 6 months, and Canada-India relations were in a freefall. Following the explosive fallout over the assassination of Sikh separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in British Columbia, Diplomatic ties crumbled. Ottawa accused Indian intelligence of orchestrating the killing. New Delhi dismissed it as absurd and politically motivated. Embassies were stripped of staff, intelligence sharing collapsed, and trade talks screeched to a halt. The two Commonwealth nations, once strong economic and cultural partners, suddenly looked more like enemies. But fast forward to today, and something dramatic has changed. In an unexpected twist, both India and Canada have reopened back-channel communications, and it's all thanks to Donald Trump's economic wrecking ball. As of this week, Trump, still the frontrunner for the GOP nomination, has doubled down on his 2024 campaign promise to slap universal tariffs on imports, starting with a sweeping 10% blanket tax on all goods entering the United States. The shockwaves have been immediate. American allies from Europe to Asia are scrambling to shield themselves from economic fallout. But for India and Canada, who both heavily depend on trade with the U.S., this isn't just a threat, it's an existential warning. For Canada, whose economy sends nearly 75% of its exports to the U.S., Trump's tariff hammer could hit like a freight train. For India, which is angling to become the world's next manufacturing superpower, the move threatens to derail its exports just as they begin to gain global momentum. So what's the strategy? Unlikely cooperation. Sources familiar with the matter, speaking to Bloomberg on March 26, confirmed that Indian and Canadian officials are now engaged in quiet diplomacy. They're discussing joint trade arrangements, supply chain partnerships, and even regional tariff shelters to work around a future Trump-imposed economic wall. And it's not just talk. India's foreign ministry confirmed this week that dialogues with strategic partners are ongoing. Meanwhile, Canadian Trade Minister Mary Ng has begun consultations with counterparts in Asia-Pacific, with India named as a priority re-engagement. But is this new alignment just reactive politics, or a signal of a deeper, long-term shift? On the surface, this thaw may look like a strategic detour around American protectionism, but the stakes go far deeper. If India and Canada can genuinely mend ties and collaborate, they could shape a mini-alliance of middle powers determined to challenge U.S. trade hegemony, especially under a second Trump administration. And they're not alone. Countries like Brazil, South Korea, and even the UK are watching closely, weighing similar moves. Yet the risks are sky-high. Critics argue that the India-Canada reconciliation is rushed, flimsy, and driven more by fear than vision. Skeptics point out that trust has not been rebuilt, and key issues, like the Nijar investigation, remain unresolved. How can two nations suddenly pivot from distrust to cooperation without addressing the root of their fallout? Others warn that these emergency alliances could destabilize global trade even further. If Trump wins and follows through on his tariff regime, the result may not be better cooperation, but a fragmented, regionalized trade map full of short-term pacts and retaliatory deals. Still, some analysts see opportunity. A post-American trade order, they argue, was inevitable, and Trump is simply accelerating it. For countries like India and Canada, this is a chance to define their economic independence, diversify partnerships, and reduce dependence on volatile superpowers. Could this even spark a revival of multilateralism led by emerging democracies rather than Washington or Beijing? The answer may hinge on one thing: whether India and Canada can move from strategic necessity to genuine mutual trust. So here we are, in a world where enemies become allies and global economic power balances shift overnight. Trump's tariff threats may be causing chaos, but they're also forcing a reordering of international alliances that no one saw coming. Will India and Canada truly join forces to defy Trump's economic nationalism? Or is this a temporary truce doomed to collapse under unresolved tensions? Let us know what you think in the comments. Could this be the birth of a new trade alliance, or just political theater? Subscribe for more hard-hitting geopolitical analysis. The world is changing fast, and we'll help you make sense of every twist and turn.